The United States military carried out a highly dangerous and provocative stealth bomber maneuver during the late hours of last night as a direct preparation for yet another massive large-scale military strike located deep within the sovereign territory of Iran. The B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, which is famously referred to by its pilots as the Nightmare Bomber, is the exact same type of aircraft that successfully disabled and neutralized critical Iranian nuclear research facilities back during the height of the 12-day war. Several key intelligence sources, such as Defense Geek and AISN Spotter, have actively monitored, tracked, and visually spotted this specific aircraft as it departed from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, which is the primary operational home of the strategic B-2 stealth bombers. Specifically, one of these aircraft was observed flying along this approximate flight path heading towards Portugal and Spain, passing quite close to the strategic Strait of Gibraltar. This flight said I had reached the contact area via this aircraft and approximately the Santa Maria station area here. It had initiated a transmission, and this is the transmission that caught the attention of observers and these sources, which appeared as follows, and through which it became perfectly clear that this aircraft was preparing for maneuvers in this region, which it began immediately after taking off from Whiteman Air Force Base with Air Force Base without stopping in any European country such as Britain or even Germany. And the maneuver was essentially a portion of this involves a plane that has arrived in Stuttgart, Germany, located roughly right about here. This is an E-6B Mercury, an asset considered to be a highly important aircraft and specifically linked to secure communications with the United States Nuclear Command. It was present in this maneuver, which unfolded in this way. The B-2 established contact with this aircraft that flew from Germany to reach this region, and communications began between the two aircraft, primarily the E-6B Mercury. This aircraft specializes in communicating with strategic bombers, as we discussed regarding the U.S. Nuclear Command, as well as nuclear-armed submarines. It typically issues orders to submarines, for instance, to launch ballistic or even nuclear missiles at targets the United States intends to strike. التي تريد الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية من استهداف. At the very same time, the Kuwaiti the United States Air Force's B-1B Lancer strategic bomber was also observed making a rather notable appearance. And in many of these bombers are stationed at Fairford Base in Britain, and the B-52s have also appeared. These are by no means ordinary bombers. They were seen flying like this from Britain itself just today. The B-52s have been flying in this manner, meaning the United States is conducting these maneuvers almost around the clock. These maneuvers are considered extremely dangerous. Why? The reason for this is that the E-6B Mercury aircraft had already arrived here nearly 48 full hours ago by now. Heading towards Stuttgart, Germany, and upon reaching this region, it coincided with the passage of a highly significant nuclear-powered Ohio-class submarine, the USS Alaska, which was then crossing through the Strait of Gibraltar, carrying a payload of approximately 24 missiles. The Trident II ballistic missile is capable of delivering a payload of multiple nuclear warheads, posing an extreme level of danger with an operational range spanning from 7,200 to 12,000 kilometers, and therefore this is a very large distance that could cover the entirety of Iran without any problem, and thus it is time for the B-2 to arrive right now and bring the B-1B Lancer along with it. Well, you see this aircraft taking off from bases in Britain alongside the heavy B-52 to dart out the AFA-32 strategic bombers, while the B-1B Lancer was also previously tracked as it flew out towards the Mediterranean region before eventually returning to base. And so all of this becomes perfectly clear through. All these maneuvers and arrangements indicate that there is readiness on the part of all these aircraft, whether it be the B-2, B-1B, or B-52, but with the presence of the Mercury this time. Acting as a command center and an airborne command post with the nuclear-powered submarine USS Alaska to execute direct single-line military strikes deep inside Iran, it is highly likely that the attacks will not just be on Tehran, but could also be directed at other strategic locations. It is on the Strait of Hormuz. As we discussed, this submarine is capable of launching missiles directly at any point in Iran, and the E-6B Mercury can issue commands from here without any issues. Consequently, it is also viewed that these maneuvers could indeed play a role regarding the Strait of Hormuz. Because the crucial issue because Iran has nearly succeeded in activating 30 out of 33 missile bases as reported by American sources yesterday. Naturally, this is a highly dangerous situation. Strategic bombers must neutralize these bases to eliminate the Iranian threat before they attempt to advance into this region. Naturally, the United States is highly prepared to advance toward the Strait of Hormuz. There are always two aircraft carriers present, in addition to the USS Tripoli, which is carrying U.S. Marines and several destroyers. Consequently, the U.S. is prepared to carry out an operation in this region. What is also dangerous for Iran now is that there have been announcements and in fact many leaks from major sources like the Wall Street Journal and Reuters, which have now confirmed that the United Arab Emirates and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have carried out undeclared operations against Iran during this war in self-defense against these Iranian attacks. And it also turned out that Kuwait in fact was too. Operations targeted Iraq, not Iran. For the Reuters reported Saudi Arabia struck pro-Iran factions in Iraq behind attacks on them, or Kuwait and Africa. To these countries retaliated against Iraq, sending a message on each and a major warning to Iran and its factions that any future military escalation could lead these countries to carry out public operations that will not stop. Regarding the strikes, therefore, all the mysterious strikes we witnessed in Iraq were not necessarily Israeli, as many sources had suggested. In fact, they could have originated from the Arab Gulf states, because these are energy-producing nations, and striking or attacking the energy infrastructure would trigger a natural response from them. It has also become quite clear that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, throughout the ongoing conflict against the nation of Iran, he departed for the UAE on March 26th aboard his private jet, flying directly from Israel to reach the UAE. He held a series of significant meetings, and notably 2 additional private jets were seen accompanying Benjamin Netanyahu's aircraft, which effectively means that Netanyahu was at the closest point to Iran at the most critical moment in the nature of the war with Iran, and the UAE has been through a lot. The Gulf nation that has consistently been the primary target of Iranian aggression, which makes the recent reports of Benjamin Netanyahu's presence at the front lines quite a fascinating and unexpected development. While the United Arab Emirates has officially issued a formal denial regarding the office of the Israeli Prime Minister has made several statements, and there are various recordings that strongly suggest the Prime Minister may have indeed been present on the ground during that specific time. So we are currently awaiting further details on this compelling issue. Naturally, the Iranian side perceives the danger of what lies ahead. It has become clear that strategic bombers of the Arab Gulf states have attacked Iran and armed factions, and the next step could be also control Hormuz, or even further operations against Iran's nuclear capabilities. This is by no means a simple matter, as Iran has now begun to exert pressure on Kuwait. Over the past few days, approximately 48 hours ago, Kuwait announced the arrest of 4 members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, stating that they were attempting to infiltrate Kuwait and that Kuwaiti security forces were able to apprehend them. Recently, Iranian FM Abbas Araghchi stated clearly, these 4 must be released now, or Iran will retaliate against Kuwait. Iran is escalating, threatening to strike Kuwait again. And of course, this whole matter took place towards Bubiyan Island, which we see here, which serves as a staging point for the HIMARS. We see the well-known American system in it has become clear that the United States was using HIMARS rocket launchers to strike deep inside Iran. This was evidenced by this clip, for example, which proved during the war that HIMARS were being used from Bubiyan Island in Kuwait. This footage was taken from Al-4, specifically from this vantage point, as we can see, which captured every single marker visible in the clip. And it proved at the very least that from this specific vantage point, the rocket launchers were firing directly into Iranian territory. And of course, this was clearly a dangerous precedent that, as Iran sees it, and as even the various armed factions in Iraq view the matter, justifies launching strikes inside Kuwaiti territory as a result of these attacks. In fact, the arrival of the HIMARS did not happen during this war at all. Rather, for example, in August 2024, the U.S. Marine Corps, as we observe and as documented by CENTCOM, the U.S. Central Command, shipped the HIMARS, the rocket launchers, but they did not announce the location where they arrived. They need to claim that it reached the United States Central Command area, but if we identify this specific region by utilizing these clearly visible markers, as we can clearly observe right here on the right side of the display screen. If we take a moment to carefully examine this building and move just a little bit closer, we will notice that there is a perimeter fence surrounding it. And right here, as you can clearly see for yourself, is a side entrance. This entire area is situated in Kuwait, specifically at the American military installation known as Camp Beering, which is located deep inside the country. This is a rule through which we can preparing and readying U.S. forces before they deploy in the region. This is exactly the angle consistent with what was released by Central Command in 2024, which confirms that these are the buildings we pointed to on the right. Here is the fence or wall, and this is the same building we discussed. Consequently, this shows that these HIMARS had arrived approximately here, and that is where the photo was taken. Of course, Allah and all of this confirms that this base, which which is considered strategic for the United States, specifically in Kuwait, is where these rocket launchers usually arrive. From there, they were deployed in large numbers here on Bubiyan Island to strike deep into Iran and inflict damage on the Iranian interior from a highly critical location. Of course, talking about Avaz. This is not an easy region for the Iranian side. There are energy hubs, and there is also a concentration of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. This island region we are discussing has become akin to a safe zone to protect Kuwait, of course, along with these other islands. Consequently, it confronts incoming threats with great speed and high effectiveness. So, what happened with the guards is that they were approaching in a boat and got close to Bubiyan Island. This, in a way, indicated that the individuals on board that boat were attempting, for instance, from identifying HIMARS locations and taking action to disable them, to neutralize this threat to the Iranian interior, of course. Consequently, they were arrested, and we are waiting to see how things might develop, as Iran is posing a significant threat to Kuwait here. What is the threat? Simply put, the United States, as we observe through all the military buildups, maneuvers, strategic bombers, and deployments here in the Arabian Sea, wants to militarily control the Strait of Hormuz, should they pursue that option, of course. The Iranian side, and it's very clear that they won't be satisfied with just striking energy facilities like gas and others. They are also considering seizing the Strait of Hormuz. They will also take control of Kuwait if they do not do so by land and amphibious landing. In fact, they might take control through firepower. Furthermore, armed factions could play a role in this matter in Iraq, as well as the Houthi group, which could quickly close the Bab al-Mandab Strait. And this is a difficult scenario for US President Donald Trump. Why do you ask? And it would lead to a sharp rise in fuel prices across the US. Also, it's unclear how military strikes on Iran would end once they began. The upcoming World Cup is of immense importance to the United States, and it is scheduled to kick off in just 1 month's time. Consequently, the American government is eager to steer clear of any potential conflicts or international crises, all while guaranteeing that the tournament proceeds without a hitch. Therefore, reaching a formal agreement is clearly the most prudent path forward. And as you can see in this footage, President Trump traveled to China to hold high-level discussions with the Chinese president. As of now, according to Fox News, what is clear regarding his agenda upon arriving in China is that the top priority is the Iranian side, as Iran is the primary issue compared to any other matters we are seeing. It was clear that the Chinese president criticized the militarization of the Strait of Hormuz and also stated that there should be no tariffs. And consequently, these statements made this morning during his meeting with US President Donald Trump having a sense sent a message to Iran that we do not want this war to continue, and China may be playing a role in pushing Iran to make greater concessions. This is not clear, but Iran has started to offer concessions. Chinese ships have also begun passing through the Strait of Hormuz without any tolls, as a gesture of goodwill from Iran to show that it wants an agreement. It would be better for US President Donald Trump to have an agreement as he heads toward a successful World Cup next month. At the same time, having the Chinese president actually visit the United States in September would put him in a strong position for the midterm elections in November. However, if we head toward the military situation, things might not just be about Kuwait and the region. We would be facing difficult economic conditions in the region. Iran threatened to enrich uranium to 90% for a bomb. They lack the capacity, but could decide to act. That's dangerous without